the rock for the day. I get props to hip hop plus the NBA. Ho, hey.
This may come as a surprise, but I wasn't just a music fan in the 90s. I was also a basketball fan in the 90s. I contain multitudes. But just like I discovered music during a weird part of the 90s, I also got into basketball at just the weirdest possible time. Specifically during Michael Jordan's first short-lived retirement. Which means, among other things, that I watched that one NBA Finals game where they cut away to show footage of the O.J. Simpson Bronco chase happening live. Sometime after that, my parents bought us this one VHS tape from Walmart called NBA Superstars 3. We watched this tape over and over and over again in my house. I don't think it's an exaggeration to say there's probably at least a 5-month stretch where we watched it front to back every single day. We let that tape rock till the tape popped. I'm kind of surprised we did, actually, because my parents hated music videos. We weren't even allowed to watch MTV when we were over at our friend's house. We also didn't have cables, so our ability to watch basketball games was pretty much limited to local college stuff and whatever weekend games NBC would air. So can you really blame us? You take a household of kids who love basketball and enjoy music videos, and then you buy them a VHS tape that combines both? What did you think was going to happen? The NBA Superstars tapes were basically a series of music videos intercut with basketball highlights. Most of these videos focus on a single player, but occasionally there will be one that showcases multiple players. I've never seen the first two, but judging by the VHS covers, they focus on some of the truly legendary GOAT candidates like Jordan, Bird, Magic, Kareem, and Dr. J. Apparently, by the time they got to the third one, they'd pretty much run out of the really big names. You won't see any of those original Dream Team guys featured here. Instead, get ready for Shawn Kemp, Kenny Anderson, Mark Price, and Dan Marley. Other than Shaq, the most famous players this video spotlights are probably Isaiah Thomas and Hakeem Olajuwon. Don't get me wrong, these are some great players, especially for the time, but for the most part, they're not names your average casual fan is going to recognize 25 years later. Longtime obsessive NBA nerds will know them for sure, but the rest of you are out of luck. As skilled as some of these players were, for the most part they didn't exactly leave behind a Hall of Fame legacy. Kind of like how so many 90s musicians, no matter how big they were, just weren't able to hold on to their audiences over the years. In every era, and in every decade, there's always going to be a bunch of once famous big-time stars who end up becoming washed-up has-beens. Some might say that that's even the natural arc of stardom. But what's interesting about the musical choices in NBA Superstars 3 is that the few big names featured on it are actually still quite popular, and the ones that you wouldn't recognize probably weren't well known at the time either. I complain a lot in my videos about how people's recollections of the 90s tend to lean towards, let's say, a rather homogenous set of names that doesn't accurately reflect the overall sound of the decade. But the selections for this tape actually managed to capture the diverse styles of the time pretty well, with genres ranging from grunge, funk, hip-hop, dance pop, and adult contemporary, to more obscure experimental stuff like blues metal and even jazz rap. Very much in the rad 90s music wheelhouse, in other words. Released in 1994, the video starts with the framing device of a basketball-themed radio station called KNBA, the station that jams.
Coming live, KNBA, full DJ Red Alert, 91.7, you better recognize, yeah.
The host of the program is the dude who calls himself Cool DJ Red Alert, whose shtick is fairly entertaining, but more importantly, it doesn't distract from the overall presentation.
I'm your main man, Cool DJ Red Alert in the house. You know what I'm doing? I'm gonna be playing all the jams, all the hits that you just can't miss.
He's mostly there just to introduce songs and players, and the first introduction kicks off with Boof Bath by the Fugees? That's where I know this song from? So in case you missed it, I did a video about the Fugees last year, and at one point I realized that I knew this song from somewhere. This is actually familiar to me. I must have heard this stuff somehow, somewhere. This was way before they were famous, so they were pretty ahead of the curve. After that short intro, we get our first proper music video, with some of Larry Johnson's most exciting plays set to Ain't No Stoppin' This by LL Cool J. So each segment is pretty much a highlight package set to an existing music video, although some appear to have been shot exclusively for this program. And they sometimes also include footage of players working out or lip-syncing to the lyrics and stuff. In this case, we have Larry Johnson here telling folks what he's all about.
Hi, I'm Larry Johnson.
Larry Johnson.
Some call me LJ.
LL Cool J hopefully needs no introduction, but to bring you up to speed, this song is from his 1993 album 14 Shots to the Dome. So it's after he reinvented himself with Mama Said Knock You Out, but before he reinvented himself again with Mr. Smith. Truly, no mainstream rapper has had as many don't call it a comeback makeovers as LL. The league must have been all in on promoting Larry Johnson as the future face of basketball, pairing him up with one of the biggest stars in the music biz and one of the only really famous names that you'll see in this video. However, 14 Shots to the Dome was considered a commercial disappointment, and after 10 years in the league and a string of back injuries, Larry Johnson retired without ever becoming a truly MVP caliber player. This video captures him at probably the most hyped portion of his career. This is an interesting mix. One of the biggest alternative rock bands of the early 90s combined with a basketball player most people probably haven't heard of. Looking like he walked straight out of Hoosiers, Mark Price was a point guard in the Cleveland Cavaliers during the 80s and 90s, while Soul Asylum were an alternative rock band from Minneapolis who far eclipsed the underground buzz of their more revered fellow Minnesotans, Husker Du and the Replacements. With their multi-platinum 1992 album Grave Dancers Union, fueled by the success of its unstoppable hit single Runaway Train and its Have You Seen This Child music video. Personally, this might just be nostalgia for the video, but I'll take this single over Runaway Train any day. I wasn't that big of a Soul Asylum fan back then, but I always like watching this clip because Mark Price has some really fun highlights in here. The guy can apparently shoot lights out, and it's always been enjoyable to me seeing smaller and less athletic guys making plays around the basket. I guess I found that playing style a little more relatable. This video is also funny because they included some scenes of the bands shooting hoops at their local gym or something and wearing NBA jerseys over t-shirts, which was the style at the time, as if they're in some Nike commercial. I like this song a lot, even though singer Dave Pernier's voice starts to get a little ugly towards the end.
Well, everybody get up. I order you to jam. Shake it down, break it. Let's get with the program.
Next we have Jam by Domino, with Alonzo Mourning providing the highlights. I'm pretty sure this is a remix version of the song that was specifically produced for this video. This version has a totally different beat from the album version, and a lot of the lyrics have been changed so that it's now basketball themed.
Well, here I come. Can't stop me on the floor. I'm a role model, don't stand through the door.
Confusingly, Domino is best known for the song Ghetto Jam, his debut top 10 single. According to every source I've read, he was a West Coast rapper whose career didn't get very far because he was considered too similar to Snoop Dogg, which I guess I kind of hear, but to me his flow is a lot more energetic and melodic, which is not to say more distinctive. As for Alonzo Mourning, he played center for the Charlotte Hornets, and had what I can only describe as a truly intimidating high-top fade. He ended up having a pretty distinguished career in the NBA, making the All-Star team 7 times and winning Defensive Player of the Year twice. He even gets to do his own intro on this song.
Yo, all you high flyers out there, Alonzo Mourning in the house. Coming up is Domino, so get ready for his special version of Jam right here on KNBA, the station that jams.
The next video focuses on 2 players, Derek Coleman, then of the New Jersey Nets, and Steve Smith, drafted by the Miami Heat, who get paired together because they both went to high school in Detroit, although only Steve Smith was born and raised in the area.
Next up are 2 guys from Detroit, Derek Coleman and Steve Smith, the MCC, Motor City Connection.
There's a bunch of footage of them hanging out like they knew each other from way back, which I assume was taken from some earlier video feature. I can't tell how well they really knew each other and how much of it was a media gimmick, but putting the 2 of them together for this video really works. Derek Coleman was a power forward and Steve Smith was a shooting guard, so seeing their contrasting playing styles makes for some really great moments. Like, there's a part where we see Coleman dunking right in Patrick Ewing's face, and then the next shot is Steve Smith getting all up in Ewing's mug and trash-talking him. Great stuff. It probably helps that the song they use, Moving On Up by M People, might low-key be my favorite music choice here. M People were an English group featuring Heather Small on vocals and producer/saxophonist Mike Pickering. This song is an intriguing mix of dance club pop and almost disco-ish funk, and it just rules. These hooks have been trapped in my head for years, and Heather Small has a really unique and soulful voice.
Just who do you think you are? Take it like a man, baby, if that's what you are.
I think this was a much bigger hit in the UK, and it's a shame it didn't get more popular in the United States. It's just really effective to have an up-tempo song like this soundtracking a collection of exciting sports highlights.
Steve Smith.
Trying to get possession. Watch out for this one.
Good job, everybody. Let's see what's next. Oh. Oh no. Oh no, no, no. Do people today realize how big of a star Celine Dion was? I feel like she as a performer is still really well known, but most of her songs seem to have been totally forgotten, probably because they're all terrible. But there's no escaping it. Celine was just as big a star as Whitney, Mariah, Shania, or anyone else you could identify with just one of their names. Granted, this song was from before that time, but that doesn't make it any better. This is actually a different mix of the song from the album version with more of a hip-hop style breakbeat to it, but it's still just not a very good song. I mean, these hooks are weak sauce, courtesy of songwriter Diane Where Singers Go to Die Warren. The basketball footage is pretty good though, thanks to Thunder Dan Marley of the Phoenix Suns. These clips present him as a clutch and versatile player, capable of swishing ridiculously long three-pointers, dunking on the fast break, and setting up his teammates for wide-open looks. Also, apparently they shot footage of him and Celine Dion messing around on a basketball court together. So, you know, respect to Celine for hooping it up with a professional athlete. This song is bad, but maybe she has some game that I don't know about, and that's why they're using her here. Next up, it's Cool DJ Red Alert playing with this basketball toy. Hey, I had one of these. It was impossible to make shots on them.
It's the funk coming at ya. So don't let the crossover catch ya. Boys say real.
Also next up, it's a song by Eric Sermon and a video featuring New Jersey Nets point guard Kenny Anderson. You can tell it's the 90s because New Jersey still has an NBA team. Eric Sermon was a New York rapper formerly of the legendary hip-hop group EPMD. This song, Stay Real, is off his debut solo album, No Pressure. To be honest, this was never my favorite segment from the video. The song is fine, and there's some good footage of Kenny Anderson hanging around the neighborhood, but he didn't seem like that exciting of a player, and he only made one All-Star team in his career. Coincidentally, the same year this video was released. And then the Nets ended up trading him 2 years after this. What I do like about this segment is how well it connects basketball with hip-hop culture, which, believe it or not, wasn't always an automatic association. Post Allen Iverson, basketball and rap are practically synonymous, but back then, outside of a few ad campaigns, they weren't totally linked in people's minds yet.
Shoot Pass Slam by Shaquille O'Neal.
Do you want me to shoot it? Do you want me to pass it?
Okay, if you're not aware of this, then first of all, I apologize for being the one to have to break it to you, but here goes. Shaq had a rap career in the 90s.
Do you want me to slam?
Not just a rap career, but a successful one, with multiple platinum albums to his name. Yeah, I don't know how this was allowed to happen either. All I can tell you is that during the 90s, he was arguably the single most marketable athlete in any sport. What, were you gonna be the one to tell him not to rap just because he's bad at it? That sure didn't stop him from having an acting career.
Biscuit, I task it, I rip down the basket. Yo, Shaq, can you rock the mic? How can you ask it? I flow like a stream, better yet a river.
I mean, this all didn't come totally out of nowhere. He did have a pretty good verse on Fushnikin's What's Up Doc, Can We Rock prior to this. But one verse is a novelty. A whole album? That's just hubris. One man's fame run well out of control. Shoot Pass Slam? How about whatever, just as long as you stop rapping? Fortunately, the segment remains watchable because Shaq's dominance around the basket was just obscene at this time. Young Shaq was just pure beast on the court. Part of me wonders if they went ahead with this tape just to capitalize on the fact that one of their players also makes music. I bet that saved them a lot of time. Too bad Larry Johnson didn't play the accordion or something. That would have been convenient. Up next, this is my choice for weirdest combination. Some band called Soul Hat, presumably not a supergroup consisting of members of Soul Asylum and Foghat, and Hakeem Olajuwon. Just look at that dream shake. Damn, that's smooth. Anyway, not that I could tell at the time, but this is decidedly very un-mainstream music. This is like a psychedelic stoner blues metal boogie jam band or something. Interesting mix though. I wonder what made them go with Olajuwon for this one. Hakeem was kind of a finesse player in a lot of ways, but I guess he had his moments of brute force.
Point shooter, here's an alley-oop.
Next, Sean Kemp actually appears in the studio with Cool DJ Red Alert to talk about Pearl Jam? Yeah, that makes sense.
Check this out. There's a group out there that you collaborate with called Pearl Jam. Tell me about them.
That's right. Pearl Jam is definitely a group out in Seattle. Just a rise in the past 2 or 3 years.
Kemp played for the Seattle Supersonics, which is another sign that this video is from the 90s. The Pearl Jam song they're using is Go from their 1993 album Versus. Now, if you know a lot about Pearl Jam, then you know that by this time they had stopped making music videos altogether. So how did they throw together a video for this one? Easy. Just take existing clips from the videos for Alive and Even Flow, speed them up a little so that they match the tempo, and cut fast enough that nobody will notice the recycled footage. They even started off by using Eddie's rant from the beginning of the Even Flow video.
Not a TV studio! Turn these lights out! Ready to stand up!
Incidentally, Shawn Kemp was known as the Rain Man, and other than Shaq, is probably the player with the craziest high-flying dunks on this entire tape. Just stupid athletic during his prime. Unfortunately, he ended up being notorious more for fathering a whole bunch of kids and putting on way too much weight later on in his career. He did lead the Sonics to the NBA Finals in 1996, but they ended up going up against Michael Jordan's Chicago Bulls, so you can just take a wild guess as to how that went for them. This video is just the perfect match. One of the hardest rocking Pearl Jam songs, and a player who just aggressively swatted and dunked all over everybody. 5 stars. Nothing but net here.
Insanity scores! Go will drive it, reverses off the high glass, and hit!
You can tell they're running out of contemporary players because this next video mainly consists of 2 players' highlights from the late 80s and early 90s. You see, in the mid to late 90s, after the University of Michigan's Fab 5 came through, basketball shorts got a lot longer and baggier. It's a dead giveaway here that up until now we've been watching players mostly in knee-length shorts. Then we reach this video and suddenly it's a full-on throwback to the tail end of the short shorts era. Oh, by the way, this is Isaiah Thomas and Joe Dumars, the starting backcourt of the bad boy Detroit Pistons that won back-to-back championships in 1989 and 1990. This song is No Pain, No Gain by Buckshot LaFunk, which is subtitled A Branford Marsalis Project. Branford Marsalis was a famous jazz saxophonist, or as famous as a person could be playing jazz saxophone back then without going full Kenny G, who put together this eclectic funk slash rap slash rock slash soul slash jazz slash etc. combo in an attempt to make the genre more relevant to the modern age. It was never totally embraced by the mainstream or the niche jazz audience at the time, but it's enjoyable stuff, and it goes well with the ridiculous passes, handles, and circus shots coming from Zeke and Dumars here.
Behind the back to OP for the jam! Thomas has a 3-on-2. Oh, what a pass! It cut!
We close things out with the video meant to highlight the so-called rising stars of the NBA at the time, mostly a bunch of rookies, set to the song Are You Ready to Fly by Rosala.
Ori takes it in!
This is gonna be fun. I don't know a lot about Rosala, and I can't identify all of the players in this video. But here's me giving both my best shot. Rosala was a dance pop artist. I know her song Everybody's Free was used on the Venture Brothers at one point, and I'm gonna go way out on a limb and guess that she was bigger in Europe than she was in the United States. Well, let me know if I got any of that wrong. As for the players, some of these clips go by way too fast, but here are the ones I'm positive are in this video. Chris Webber, Anthony Hardaway, Sean Bradley, Jamal Mashburn, Isaiah Ryder, Vin Baker, Cliff Robinson, Clarence Weatherspoon, Stacey Ogman, Latrell Sprewell, Gary Payton, Harold Miner, Christian Laettner, Tom Gugliotta, Robert Horry, and Jim Jackson. There. I'm pretty sure I only made a few of those up. As a grab bag of different players from around the league, the video's not bad. It probably could have benefited from a little more focus, but I like the egalitarian approach to showcasing young NBA talent, even though I couldn't tell you much about the majority of the players here. And there it is, NBA Superstars 3. This whole video is uploaded to YouTube, so go watch the whole thing if you want to experience the ideal representation of my own personal peak 90s nostalgia. I am Jacob, and this was Rad 90s Mixtapes. Peace and love to y'all. See ya.